any consolation, they haven't advised any of us. Yeah. So like none of the hospital staff that I work with have been advised to.
Oh, really?
None of us. So the messages from our medical leaders say you're immune compromised, get your fourth booster. Yeah. Otherwise, it's optional.
You're right, raise my whatever that is.
Probably not necessary.
I'll raise my evidence to Scrooge.
But it does sound like a good plan for fall.
Oh yeah, for sure. The new variants are weird. I kind of go back and forth. Right now, I'm okay. I'm maskless. I'm kind of glad that I feel like I need a break, so there is another surge.
Then you can put your mask back on and not be demobilized.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and also, the new variants, like BA2 will be more contagious. Hospitalizations are waiting.
Yeah.
And so, the whole thing about, like, if you read the neurology, virus, natural selection for a virus is to spread. So hopefully, that's the evolutionary direction. They become more mild.
Yeah.
More contagious, but more mild. Right?
That seems to be the case.
Yeah, it's about time.
Babies. For our prelude, please open to 127 in the gray hymnal. You don't need to stand. Can I see another's woe, and not be in sorrow too? Can I see another's grief, and not seek for kind relief? Can I see a falling tear, and not feel my sorrows share? Let a father see his child, weep nor be with sorrow filled. Can a mother sit and hear infant groan and infant fear? No, no, never can it be. Never, never Good morning, everyone. Come, come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. Good morning again. My name is Zach Stickney. My pronouns are he, him, and his. We want to welcome everyone gathered with us here physically in the sanctuary and online as well in our virtual audience. Our worship team today is led by the Reverend John Cooper. I'm your worship associate. Our time for all ages is going to be led by Rob Carlson today. Our musicians are Lisa Youngberg and John Allen. We have a reading by Sutton Morgan this morning. Our sound and streaming lead are Stephen Smith and Maureen Davies, and our board greeter is Elena Hendricks. Very quickly, I'd also like at this point to invite Jordan Roberts very quickly to give us an announcement.
Good morning. So Jordan Roberts, he and him, member of the COVID task force that includes Brian Debbink, who's also here, Lori and Phil Quigley, and Michelle Debbink, and Shawnee, who's downstairs. Just wanted to give everyone a reminder that as part of our ability to come back and be together in person, we do require folks who are eligible to be vaccinated. We're no longer checking vaccination status at the front door as we were, but it's understood that if you are here in person, that you are vaccinated if you can be. We are seeing a rise in cases as determined through antigen testing and wastewater, so another wave is here. But so far, thankfully, and hopefully it will continue, our burden of disease in terms of hospitalizations, emergency room visits, ICU beds that are taken up remains low. And I think that is in part due to a large herd immunity effect that we have here in this area. And we want to keep that herd immunity strong in our congregation by remaining vaccinated. So the current guidelines are for folks who are 50 and older to receive a second booster or a fourth shot if you're doing the mRNA series. That also is, you're eligible if you are 12 and older and have a moderate to severe immunocompromise. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, anything that suppresses your immunity, diabetes would be a good example. So I would encourage all of you who are eligible to receive a second booster to do so, especially since we are seeing cases ticking up again. Happy to answer any questions if you have them, if you're concerned, if you're eligible or not. I can help to make that clear. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update, Jordan. And on that note as well, as we continue emerging from this time of pandemic, this continuing time of pandemic, we just want to remind everyone to please do so gently and with compassion for all gathered here. Masks are optional at this time, but we do ask you to please be thoughtful in approaching others for greetings. We're all in very different places and contexts, so it's best to ask before doing things like shaking hands, hugging, or getting close to speak. We do invite you to sing as you wish during today's service. Beyond that, we do want to continue to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are here with us for the first time. We're very glad that you're here. If you'd like to get to know us better, we encourage you to fill out a connection card in your virtual order of service in the hymnal book, or to visit our welcome table following worship today. If you missed the QR code at the front, you can also find it in the hardback hymnals, as I said. And after the service, we do invite everyone to join us for coffee and tea and snacks downstairs in our social hall. So please take advantage of that. There's a lot of good food and good conversation to be had down there. We also have a religious exploration program for children and youth that meets weekly on Sundays during worship, and our director, Rob Carlson, is happy to answer any questions that you might have about that. He's waving his hand over there, so just in case you haven't met him yet. And of course, there's always a lot happening here at South Valley, and the Happenings weekly newsletter is the best way to stay up to date on that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And at this point, now that you've had enough of me talking, we'd like to share the warmth of community a little bit as well. So let's take a moment now to fully arrive and welcome one another with joy. We're going to take just about 2 minutes. We encourage you, if you haven't experienced this before, this is something we're kind of bringing back, where we just get a chance to stand up and greet the person next to you and behind you. Especially if you haven't met that person before. It's nice to get to know their name. So let's take just maybe 1 or 2 minutes to do that now.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I didn't miss anything.
Nope.
Okay.
I was just thinking about something from George and Charles since I declined to move the mic.
Oh, gotcha. There's one there.
Yeah.
Is it
I've got it.
okay.
I was distracted figuring out, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But
It's weird refiguring out logistics. So you see it's mute button, not mute.
it's good to see. It's good to see people.
Sometimes we just have
We'll just, yeah.
start the hymn.
Yeah, we ring the chime.
Okay.
Right, to get them out of it. I'll ring the chime and you can announce the hymn, or John can.
Is it 295?
Yep. Yep. I'll ring that. John's got it.
Let's sing! Stand if you'd like to sing our opening hymn, 295.
Yeah. let us light our chalice. We invite you to rise in body, mind, or spirit as we say our chalice lighting words, and use our actions if you want. Those at home are invited to light a chalice and share in this ritual by entering chalices lit at the name of your street, the chat box on Zoom. I'm drawing a blank on our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Thank you all. I have the light. Oh, you've got it. My name is Reverend John Cooper. Good morning. I'll introduce myself a little better at the start of the sermon. As we gather this morning, we do so on ancestral and current homelands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. As Unitarian Universalists, we acknowledge the complex and violent history that resulted in the stealing of these lands and the cultural and physical genocide perpetrated against its peoples at the hands and policies of white colonial settlers. We commit ourselves to undoing these harms, and we seek to authentically and with honesty engage in the necessary work that will produce justice for those disenfranchised and that promotes healing for the whole of the earth and all of its peoples. For our call to worship this morning, I just want to acknowledge the hard work that everyone has done. I also want to pause to say it is Richard Coleman in our sound booth this morning. I don't know if there was a switch, but I recognized that the name was incorrect. So, hi, Richard. Thank you. And I want to say how, for our call to worship this morning, I just want to say how delightful it is to be here and to get to see all of you enjoying one another and to get to see this community restore its vibrancy being here in person. You know, I mean, it was visible online how vibrant and beloved this community is to everyone, but it's more visible here in person, and it's delightful to see. Thank you all. Let us worship. We have storytelling, or our time for all ages, as it is properly called.
Good morning, dear friends. So good to be with all of you this morning. I'd like to invite all of our young people and the young at heart to join me up front, if you would like. Good morning. So good to see all of you this morning. Hi, Claire. How are you? Good. Hi, Elliot. Morning. Good morning. Oh, I love your butterfly wings. Those are so cool. Wow. It's very springy. That's perfect. I love that. Butterflies and unicorns, very spring-like. Well, welcome. Good to see you, Leo and Isaac and Max, Tessa and Jenny. Hi, Anya. Anya? Good to see you. All right. So I have a question for all of you this morning. Do any of you know, do you want to have a seat? Do you want to have a seat over here too, Caitlin? Will you please? Thank you. Do any of you know, and maybe some of those who are young at heart might know, who this person is? Oh, I'm so encouraged that some of your hands are going up. Do you know who this is? Who is this? It's Mr. Rogers. Yeah, some of you who might not know, have you ever seen that cartoon, Daniel Striped Tiger? Have you ever seen that? Yeah, well, Mr. Rogers, this man, is the one who created Daniel Striped Tiger. Yeah, and so Mr. Rogers was someone who I watched on TV a lot when I was growing up. He passed away several years ago, but he made a really big impact on all of the kids like me and kids before me who were growing up. And one of the things that Mr. Rogers always taught about was being kind to one another. And The last few weeks, we've been talking about the Earth. It was Earth Day last week. So we've been thinking a lot about our world, and we've been thinking a lot about the climate. And today, we're going to be, Reverend John is going to be talking with our grown-up friends about those in our community who are healthcare workers. Mr. Rogers always said to look out for people who are helpers. And I think that that's really important because there are so many people in our world whose job it is, well, not just maybe their job, but out of the kindness of their heart, they dedicate their lives to helping people. So like with our world, there are people who help clean our environment. And today, as we talk about healthcare workers, people like doctors and nurses and people who work in hospitals and medical clinics, people who help keep other people safe and healthy, well, we're thinking a lot about them in this time. We know that there are people who are getting sick, right? And we know how there are a lot of people who may not be getting what they need so that they can feel well, right? And it takes some very special people to do that. And so when we think about people who are sick, people who are getting better from being sick, one of the ways that I think we, who might not necessarily be healthcare workers ourselves, one of the things that we can do to help people know that we're thinking about them is to maybe pray for them, to bless them, and to bless the people who take care of people, right? So this morning, I just wanted to offer a blessing with all of you. I wanted us to take just a moment, be in silence, where we could thank, through a blessing, all of those people who are healthcare workers, because they are in a really, really, really busy time right now, helping people through some of the sicknesses that are going around. Yeah, you're nodding your head. So, if you would like, if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, or you could leave your eyes open, and just listen as we give this blessing to all of our healthcare workers today and this week. O mysterious one who created in our bodies the power to heal, we honor today those in our community who are trained to focus this healing. Nurses and doctors who carry the words and wisdom to keep us well. May these people feel each hour the deep gratitude that our community has for them. And as they look to return to work tomorrow and the next day and the next day, may they hear in their hearts a great loud chorus of thank you ringing out from our community. We ask for ourselves and for those we love that our will to heed the advice and listen to the advice of those who are healers be as great as the honor that we have for them. So thank you to all of our healthcare workers this morning, and we ask that all of us can help to keep one another happy and healthy. Thank you all for helping me win that blessing this morning. Those of you who would like can join Grace and I downstairs for some RE activities. And we are, as we return to worship and as we see so many of our families returning and visiting, we are still working on our volunteer recruitment and specifically finding some workers for our child care ministry. And so if you have a young person, maybe 4 years old or younger, kind of toddler, younger infant, we do have our kids' corner in the back, and then we also do have our nursery set up downstairs. We're still working on getting a child care professional from week to week for that space. But if you are a parent or a caregiver or guardian who would like to be with your child down in the nursery this morning, if that would be good for their time this morning, you are welcome to do that. And everyone else, we are going to walk downstairs through this staircase here. We've got some things happening in our social hall. So if you would like to join us, you can come with me.
Thank you to Rob and all the young people and young at heart. It's now time for our offertory. This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts that you give of your time, your talents, and your treasures. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we're very grateful. Your gifts ensure that we're able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. And as you know, part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. This month, that is Friends of the Great Salt Lake. At this time, if you'd like to please join me in reading our offertory words. Those are printed in your order of service. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
For all we have received and all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and to the Friends of the Great Salt Lake. May it be so. All gathered here today are invited to participate in our ritual of joys and sorrows. Those who are joining us in the virtual community are invited to use the chat box in the Zoom space to share your joys and sorrows with one another. Our worship associate will gather and read those out from the pulpit after those who are gathered in the sanctuary have had an opportunity to approach the altar and place their stones. For those gathered here in body, you are invited to approach the altar and place a stone in the water. Feel free to pause as you select your stone and gently place it in the water bowl. You are invited to practice this ritual in silence. John will share the gift of his music with us during this time. At the close of our ritual, when all who have wished to do so have added their stone, we will add a final stone to represent the joys and sorrows unexpressed, but which are still held with kindness. Those gathered here in body may now begin to process up to the table. Please approach via the right aisle and return to your seat via the left aisle. Thank you. I will place one more stone for all those joys and sorrows unspoken. As I do so, please take a breath and extend your caring, your kindness to whatever is burdening or uplifting the hearts in the room. Thank you. Please join me in an attitude of prayer, reflection, or meditation. Gracious source of all, you that we know by many different names and faces, each in our own way, we ask that you hear these joys and these sorrows and bless those who carry them. As we look at the world today, gracious source, sometimes our hearts are burdened. We see war, we see disease, we see struggle. We hold all of those who are suffering in our hearts and hold them up to you. We ask that you bless all of them and help show us the ways that we can act and move to look after creation and one another. May it be so. Amen.
Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods that be from my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
I feel like there's a light shining upon me. I'm Reverend John Cooper. I'm a fellowshipped Unitarian Universalist minister who was ordained by this community. My full-time ministry is at the Huntsman Cancer Hospital, where I'm employed and serve as a hospital chaplain. I'm also board certified. I'm board certified with the Association of Professional Chaplains. I'm co-chair of a Unitarian Universalist Society, a community ministry APC chaplain endorsement committee, a new committee that just formed this year to help Unitarian Universalists who have trained in CPE to be endorsed for board certification as a chaplain without having to go through the full ministerial fellowship committee. And yeah, for any of you that know people who have done CPE, if you want endorsement to be able to pursue board certification, call me. Right. I'm also on Chapter Leadership Council for the newly formed Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association Community Ministers Chapter for fellowshipped UU ministers who are called to non-parish ministry. And if you ever wonder why I'm not here on a Sunday, Sunday morning is my first day off of the week. And for about 9 months of the year, it is my only day off with my spouse, Sutton. And my hospital schedule is Tuesday through Saturday. Her school schedule is Monday through Friday. It can be hard for either of us to do more on a Sunday morning than enjoy a slow cup of coffee, a nice breakfast, and maybe a church service on Zoom. This is a wonderful, amazing community. And every time I'm able to muster the energy to do more than that on Sunday morning, I am definitely uplifted and blessed and touched by coming here. Today, I'm honored to get to deliver my annual sermon. This community recognizes my ministry at Huntsman Cancer Institute as an affiliated ministry, which means that I get recognized and endorsed by this community as well. And once a year, in return, I have the honor of coming to bring things that I see and learn in the sacred, sometimes overwhelming world of healthcare into this pulpit. I want to say that previous years have taught me that some of what I can bring into this pulpit from healthcare can be hard for people, even triggering. Healthcare is a place of beauty, depth, spirit, love, hope, and also harsh realities. Sometimes those of us who live in that world wind up a bit separate from the everyday world, as the two are indeed different. We can forget what becomes normal to us is not normal to everyone. So let me offer what was colloquially or generally called a trigger warning this morning. I'm going to share reflections from my life and my ministry about the hospital. My intention is to walk a line with those reflections without crossing that line. I'm just warning you that I'm going to talk about healthcare in case I miss that mark. I also believe that the lessons, reflections, and experiences I see and have in healthcare are still worth sharing from this pulpit. Hospitals are remarkably sacred spaces, as is the healthcare that happens in them. They are, in fact, genuinely a multi-faith, multicultural, multidisciplinary ministry of healing. A place where people of all faiths, all identities come to be received, cared for, and healed. And good Unitarian Universalists, I have found very few places on this earth that so clearly embody our set of values and principles more than a hospital and healthcare. It is worth it to me to try and bring those things into the pulpit so all of you can hear it, reflect on it, and find meaning to share in it. So today I'm going to hang what I have to say around a story. It's a story about my own healthcare. Well, it's a pretty simple story. It's one many of you may be experiencing at this moment in life, or at least something like it. And so I think it illustrates something important, and if I share my own story, bonus, no HIPAA concerns. Which is why I actually like to share my own stories, right? Not because I want all your attention on me, although I don't. I'm just another patient in my stories, honestly. No. I use my own stories because I get to say what I want without having to tear them to pieces or rewrite them to try and protect HIPAA. And I grant you all formal medical permission to know whatever I'm going to say today. Some of you here know that I'm a C5-6 spinal column injury. A few of you have heard the story from this pulpit. There are a few others who were in this community when it happened, who came to visit me in rehab, sang songs with me, uplifted me. And some of you are even among the people, some of you are here among the people I'm speaking with today. I'm not going to retell the story, it's too much. In fact, it is quite a story. It grows to nearly mythical proportions. And honestly, it is a story that is bigger than I am. And that's important to understand today. Sometimes our stories, our experiences take on a kind of mythical reality. In them, we seem like heroes, and maybe we are, I don't actually know. I only know I don't feel like a hero, even when my story makes me seem like one. I'm just a guy who fell at home and woke up paralyzed. A guy who happened to have studied enough kung fu in his history to know how to work hard and survive that moment. But that wasn't because I was a kung fu hero, it's because the guy's wife was out of town, and nobody knew he'd fallen. He was alone and would be for days. So when that guy fell, his choice was to hero up for the moment or just lay there and die. Yeah, sure, it was decades of kung fu practice that helped me save myself, but I only did that practice because I loved it and I valued the lessons and training. My master, Chen Sang Lu, who died this past Easter, used to say, we do kung fu to defend our health, our lives, and our very beings, because we love life and want to live it well. I didn't do Kung Fu to be a hero. I did Kung Fu to live well and prepare for the unexpected. Turns out it was a pretty useful practice. But you all need to understand that guy is no hero. He's just a guy and a person who found themselves in circumstances that were only survivable if he heroed up for the moment. If he didn't want to die that day, that guy had to level up. Maybe that's a hero to the rest of us who get to hear this story. But it can be hard to play the role of the hero. If you recall Joseph Campbell on the hero's journey in mythology, it's a journey full of hardship, challenges, and transformation. And most often the hero's journey starts with the hero saying, I don't want to do it. Like when Moses saw a burning bush that said to him, hey, go save some people. And he was like, who, me? I think you want my brother Aaron. The moment calls us to be who we become. And being a hero can be lonely, isolating, and hard. I would rather just be a dude who fell down, for whom getting back up meant heroics. A guy who then stumbled forward through a journey he simply couldn't avoid, a journey that changed hospital patient into hospital chaplain. A hospital chaplain that, while he can no longer do Kung Fu, uses Kung Fu every day to push a battered body forward once more, to try and give back to the world of healthcare that saved his life when he needed him. Do you see? There's no way for that guy to feel the hero. But he sounds the hero when you hear the story, doesn't he? That first reality I'm sharing with you is an important reflection for the rest of what I'm going to say this morning. Hold it and listen with it. Which finally brings me to my current story. I get to constantly seek out new medical options for myself. One of the phrases I learned in rehabilitation care was pleased but not satisfied. It's how I refer to every little bit of functionality I regained, pleased but not yet satisfied. It helped me to celebrate the gains that I did get without ever losing my hunger for more. I still live in that space 12 to 13 years later. I get to seek out new medical options all the time to try and improve. Personally, I'm careful to avoid chasing options that are not evidence-based. It's another thing I learned living into this injury. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has their pet treatment or therapy I should try. After hundreds upon thousands of recommendations from people, I realized I had to keep my own counsel, or spend all my life chasing interventions other people think I should chase. So I do keep my own counsel, which is to pursue therapies and treatments that are evidence-based. And I want you to remember that reflection as well. First, being a hero in the story doesn't feel like being a hero, and that can make it lonely. And second, just because you have a solution that worked for you doesn't mean it's meant for everyone. This year, my gastrointestinal function got worse. We don't know exactly why. Personally, I think it was pandemic emotional stress related, kinda, because there's kind of been a thing. But we don't know why. We only know this past holiday season, my digestive dysfunction got bad enough to miss whole weeks of work in pain and discomfort, when I could not go to the bathroom more than once a week or so. And yes, I have to talk about bathroom stuff from the pulpit. We joke in healthcare that pretty much all we talk about is the bathroom, because although the potty is taboo to talk about pretty much everywhere but the hospital, it's also super important to our life and survival and health to be able to go to the bathroom. You know, I mentioned to a nurse that I was going to talk about healthcare from the pulpit on Sunday. Any of you know the kind of conversations nurses get comfortable with? The nurse was like, now how are you going to talk about poop from the pulpit? Poop from the pulpit. That's catchy, isn't it? It sounds like a healthcare chaplain's blog about healthcare ministry. I unfortunately already named my blog Exploring Wisdom, but now that I think about it, that's pretty boring. I wasn't able to check the availability on this writing. All the oracle at Google would give me was info about various stools people use in their churches. That is true. So like I said, healthcare is sacred and meaningful, yeah. Healthcare is also a harshly real place, and a bit ridiculous sometimes. If the hospital chaplain didn't use his moment up here to say something that tried to normalize a reality that is critical to all of our health, he would be missing the mark, I think. So on with the story, right? My insides are not working right. They're causing me a lot of trouble. So one of my skilled providers that I encountered, a new GI specialist that I just stumbled into and happened to turn out to be the director of the gastrointestinal division of the medical school. Thank you. Suggested we do a diagnostic called an anorectal manometry. It's essentially a wand with sensors that can tell how well muscles respond, and I'm going to spare you all the rest of the explanation. Use your imaginations. Once I was offered the diagnostic and learned what it might tell me, actionable specifics about what was preventing my insides from functioning, I excitedly said yes to the extremely awkward and potentially emotionally humiliating diagnostic. And it only took 3 months for me to get on the schedule for my 40-minute diagnostic. It's just as awkward and weird as you were imagining. And my results came back in only 4 weeks. Only a month for the results. My mom was beside herself for the entire 4 weeks, right? Do you know yet? Did they tell you yet? Patience is something we work for in our family. It's not something we do. Although being a patient myself did help me to learn more patience. And did you know those words are connected? It's not accidental, patient and patience. Both words come from the Latin patiens, the present active participle of patior, which means suffer, experience, or wait. The word patient very literally means one who is actively suffering, experiencing, and waiting. So I was patienting when my diagnostic results finally came back. That's right, it's a verb now, patienting. I just did that, okay? You can patient your way right to a clinic over there if you want. See, it totally works, verb, right? It's only a little awkward, like healthcare. So my diagnosis, well, essentially, my nervous spasms from losing 70% of the spine in my neck. Neurological spasms happen in spinal column injury patients and other people with nerve issues. Because the signals go up the spine or down it, but instead of going through the area with the injury, they hit scar tissue sometimes or empty space, right? And when they bump into that dead space or the scar tissues, these signals, which have kind of a velocity to them, which is a strange idea, but they actually bounce back. And boom, you have a muscle spasm when the signal gets where it's not supposed to be, right? That's a layperson's explanation, but that's how I understand it. So what I found out is that in essence, my own muscular spasms block my own GI function. Like some of the muscles spasm and block and fight other muscles, and I'm just there fighting myself and not going to the bathroom. We also found out that my neurological reality leaves my insides hypersensitive, which according to the 4 medical doctors of different specialties looking at my case right now is unique. I'm starting to understand why the director of the GI department is interested, right? Because apparently there's nobody like me in the research. I'm in terra incognita, out there on my own. I got so much functionality back for the degree and level of my injury, there's actually this kind of hypersensitivity all over me. So while my providers were surprised, I was not. Because Sutton's had to relearn a bunch of things, such as not to surprise touch me with a light touch in certain areas, or the spasms can be enough for me to fling myself out of a chair, right? Apparently my GI tract does that too. How quaint. Right? But there's good news, dear people. There are two treatment options that I get to try. One a medication, the other a therapy. And I'm eager to try them, as my symptoms do interrupt my life, and Sutton's life too. That's important to me. They interrupt my life, they interrupt her life, they interrupt my coworkers' lives, and they interrupt my patient care sometimes. And the symptoms sometimes prevent me from showing up. And as you may realize, in ministry, showing up is kind of a thing. Fortunately, there's a medication that can reduce my hypersensitivity, and a type of therapy involving biofeedback with that wand, very emotionally awkward biofeedback. Still, given what I endure, I'm all in for the emotionally awkward biofeedback. All right, and it only took me 4 weeks to find out that insurance had declined the first medication. Fortunately, they recommended a second alternative medication, which they subsequently declined after recommending it, which sent the medication into a pre-authorization audit with a different team at the University of Utah. And then my medication, right, so my provider team, my medical team, told me the medication team would get back with me. The medication team wrote me to say that I had the wrong diagnosis for the medication, and until I get the other diagnosis for the specific type of IBS, I would have to take a higher doses of the medication than my providers think is necessary. I'm a bit paused at the moment on the medication. I'm not actually sure what all of what I just said means yet. But we still got the biofeedback, right? I mean, super awkward emotionally, but as you can imagine, a guy who literally just said the phrase poop from the pulpit, from an actual pulpit, is down to do awkward if it might be helpful. I was excited when the scheduling office called me. They had one new patient appointment, they said, for the end of August 2022 at a facility only 2 hours from my home. I cannot drive 4 hours for a 1-hour PT appointment during the work week. So I asked for an appointment at another facility. There are no other appointments at any other facilities for the rest of 2022. Oh, and the scheduling software is not yet set up to do 2023. I reported back to my care team, and we're working on it. Why did I tell that story? That is what an overburdened healthcare system looks like. On the ground, when one is patienting their way through it. We read stories in the news about exhausted healthcare resources, delays, hospitals having to put off non-urgent procedures, and I wanted to personalize those things. I wanted to tell you what they mean to me as a patient, because I can disclose that information about my care. I get to. And I can use it to make what we read in the news or hear about much more solid and real. And however awkward it might be to talk about any of that from a pulpit, I feel a responsibility to do it when I get the chance. And while I was writing this sermon, I tried to count the number of lifetime career nurses that I've worked alongside for years now, who after decades left the profession in the last 24 months. I lost count. Many moved into other areas of nursing, true, because nursing is what they do, it is what they know. But when I say other areas of nursing, I am talking about the transition from hospice or palliative care that they told me fed their souls and that they loved, to 9 to 5ing it in a clinic and saying, my heart cannot just take anymore. I'm glad to just go home now. When healthcare entered the recent Omicron surge worldwide, the exhaustion in the communities around us was visible. My mother, who lives in New York City, and I talked about how every day at 5 p.m., her block was silent during Omicron. When during any previous surge, every day at 5 p.m., her neighbors were banging pots and shouting in support of the hospital around the corner. There were no parades in Omicron like there were during previous surges. Then again, remember what I said about heroes? Do you think the people of whom I speak want to be healthcare heroes? And by the way, I just heard Mr. Rogers' word, helpers. Ooh, I like that. Because they maybe don't want to be heroes. They maybe just want to do the health care they do. The state of Utah didn't reinstate the same precautions for Omicron. And so as a hospital full of immune-compromised people, we moved from having legal backup for our policies to enforcing masking and sanitizing differently than the community around us. You might imagine that was a little bumpy. I want to recognize just how understandable all of what I just said is. We are all so very tired of this pandemic. I agree. We think it's awful that we still have to ask too. And you know, and yet, in the fell clutch of circumstance, we still ask. Doesn't mean it's not exhausting. We just know it works and that our people need it. When you come to a hospital, as everyone does sooner or later, and they ask you to wear a mask again, give them back grace, not resistance. They didn't want to have to ask you to wear it either. And I'm going to pause here to go off script for a second and share a story, because it just happened yesterday. I had somebody standing at the railing looking out the window as I arrived to work without a mask, right? And he was wearing the kind of clothing that I would associate with certain things, you know? And so I wasn't sure, because our policies changed so fast. I made a phone call down to the front desk and got transferred to the security desk, and I said, hey guys, do you know our policies on masking? And, you know, are we still requiring everyone? And they said, yeah, let me look, let me double check. Yep, oh yeah, we are. Okay, thanks. So I grabbed one from the box in my drawer, and I approached the guy, and I steeled myself, and I said, sir, do you need a mask? And he went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And we had a wonderful conversation. You see, he had a family member whose surgical drain fell out, and he ran out of the room to give the staff space to work on it. Shame on you, John, right? I mean, look at the assumptions I made leading up to that first sentence. Yeah, I do it too. During the recent Omicron surge, I wandered the halls of my hospital, and I was struck by the sight around so many break room tables, where a crew of healthcare workers sat staring off into space, much like the Avengers looked during the credits at the shawarma place in New York. And the comparison is not wrong. Those people sitting around those tables are indeed heroes, right? Maybe part of what I want you to hear this morning is that although they really look like heroes, I can tell you that from listening to them, they are just as tired, discouraged, and exhausted as anyone else. Nobody I speak with actually seems to feel the hero. During the height of Omicron, I was also wandering the hospital trying to see staff, witness. And I remember more than one healthcare worker who, when I said, I see you doing this, I don't know how you're doing it. More than one of them responded to me, it is what we must do. We will do it or we will die. That is how. That, my friends, is battlefield thinking. Humans do astonishing things with battlefield thinking. We're watching today in the news, humans across the world do astonishing things with their battlefield thinking. I wonder how many of them feel like the heroes they look like to us, or how many just wish it was over. When Odin walked the world to find wisdom for his people, he wandered far and wide, and he came across the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. And when Odin came to that place in that time, the guardian asked him, do you know what is required of you here? And Odin replied, I do. And without hesitation, he drew his knife and cut out his eye. And he tossed it into the pool, and then he hung himself from the tree, a sacrifice to himself, for himself, unto himself. Gazing through and upon his lost eye, and in that moment of sacrifice, Odin glimpsed the runes, the keys to all creation, the wisdom his people would use as their only system of writing for all things they would ever do. I do not think Odin felt the hero that day. I think he wanted to help his people, and he saw a chance to do it. And maybe our healthcare heroes, our other frontline heroes, are more like that. Then again, in this story, Odin is the hero, isn't he? He has been for a few thousand years. Yeah. Something else I want to point out to all of you is in the press we hear about the non-essential or non-urgent procedures hospitals had to delay to make room for COVID care. Non-essential stuff, like a biopsy to see if someone has cancer. I mean, we don't know if it's cancer yet, right? We certainly don't know if it's a fast-growing cancer. It could be a slow-growing, so many biopsies can be categorized as non-essential. And I have met those patients, the ones whose cancer was not terminal until the biopsy to find it was delayed. I remember them. Broken legs, shattered bones, non-essential, non-urgent. Like my work colleague who worked in a boot with a shattered shin bone through the entire Omicron surge. Everyone called her a trooper. She told me how she really felt tired, resigned, in pain, accepting, because I don't have enough paid leave to sit out a whole month. And elective surgeries, I don't know about you, but when I hear elective, my first thought is cosmetic. That's just the obvious one, though. Elective surgeries also include fixing a hernia, removing kidney stones, removing an appendix. Oh, and hip and knee replacements, those are elective too. Review of a new medication, new biofeedback therapy, my biofeedback, elective, not necessary. New medication, elective, not necessary. My survival's not at risk. The way things are presented to us through a remote public lens is often missing enough detail for us to have any real understanding of its meaning. And I wanted to give you more than that this morning. Our faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith, has taught me many things. It has given me the courage to say things that might need to be said even when I'm afraid to say them. And sometimes I still find the courage, sometimes. And our faith has taught me that even when we people try to hide who or how we are, sometimes we still long to be seen and heard, recognized, despite what we cannot do or say. And one of the things I try to give patients, families, and staff is to find things I can say that demonstrate that I see them, or to be less ableist in my own thinking and language, that I will witness with them, whatever they need to share. However traumatic the thing may be to share. I, as a chaplain, am honored to be someone who says things that are hard to say and who stays in places and things where it is hard to stay. That is who I've become. My patienting journey brought me to that place, where I want to be with people during the times and places that it seems like nobody else can. It is part of what I can actually handle doing, not to play the hero, but instead to honor what healthcare gave me as a patient that I feel truthfully I can never actually repay. How does one repay every moment of meaning, purpose, connection, and love since that one other moment? I remember a patient who needed an abdominal wound cleaning. The patient said to me, "You cannot stay. Nobody can stay. It's too horrible." And he meant that about his family too. And so I offered, "Would you like me to see if I can stay? I think if you feel like you are too horrible for anyone to be able to stay with you, maybe the chaplain should try." And with his permission, I stayed and I watched, and the physician opened the wound, which actually went all the way through the abdominal muscle wall to the inside of his abdomen and beyond to his bowels. I stayed. I not only stayed, I watched. I bore witness. And he literally said to me after, "I am not alone anymore." And he held me, and together we wept. Someone stayed in that one moment for no reason other than to be with him. And that changed every moment that would come next. And also, the surgeon who did that looked me up and found me like a week later and was like, "Who are you?" Right? What? Like, what was going on there? Right? And we've done several presentations. I've spoken to our medical students, and we continue to look at spiritual and existential distress together in her practice. So what is it that I'm actually calling you all to do this morning in this sermon? Every good sermon needs a call to action, right? Fortunately, I'm not calling you all to go become hospital chaplains. Thank the gods, right? We're not all made to have to do the same or be the same or do the same stuff. For me, that is literally and truthfully the why for our global diversity. Theologically, I see diversity as the incredible blessing of being able to count upon one another to do different things. For example, some of you do accounting. Truly, I say to you, good people, in my life, accounting has caused me more trauma than any patient visit ever has, ever. And thank the gods that there are others who seem to be able to do accounting. Give me a hospital room full of loss and suffering and sorrow over a set of unbalanced, unreconciled books any day of the week. Now, this morning, I'm not calling you to come help rebuild or maintain healthcare. There are many others who already said yes to that need, who already approached that well. As the world around hospitals moves on from the past 2 years of global pandemic, right, some will not leave the battered, beaten, bloody, yet unbowed world of healthcare. And we all, as a world, as society, we need those people who choose to stay and rebuild. That is, if we want to be able to patient up when we need it, we really need people in healthcare to rebuild and restore. So our healthcare can be there if we fall and cannot get up. Should we, I don't know, fall at home, break our necks, damage our spine, or should like our bowels strangely forget what they're supposed to do or something? We need those people to rebuild the system of healthcare they populate. And you know, when our exceptional DRE, Rob Carlson, spoke last week about the billions of microbes we all need to be healthy, and the way we people are the metaphorical microbes for our earth and our planet, my mind went to the 25,000 healthcare workers, university healthcare employees, to offer healthcare to the sick among us. 25,000 people who work where I do, who have a backlog of procedures, diagnostics, and therapies to catch up on. Good people who are carrying direct trauma, vicarious trauma, PTSD, and moral injury. And if you do not know what moral injury is, most people know the other ones in that list, right? I'll run it down. Trauma is direct experience trauma. When you're in the middle of a crisis situation that imprints on your nervous system, it happens because your body goes into a state that heightens everything. Vicarious trauma is what human beings pick up when they're with someone who is experiencing actual trauma. Because we are so remarkably social, we actually pick up on nonverbal cues of all types and so forth, and our nervous systems actually start to synchronize with each other. And so when someone has direct trauma and their nervous system gets activated, someone who is caring for them or ministering to them starts to experience it. PTSD is the shock and trauma and distress that comes from the physical realities of your nervous system once you've been through trauma. And moral injury is the type of trauma that happens when someone does something out of necessity that violates their ethics. Right? I don't know any healthcare workers without some moral injury. Because there come times and places where we might know this intervention isn't helpful, but we also recognize that family needs to see us do it. All of those things, people who work in healthcare are carrying. And yet, despite the menace of these past few years, we find and shall find them unafraid. Earlier this week, one of my spiritual care volunteers said to me, "We were all damaged, but we are not yet undone." Yeah, we're all damaged. We're far, far from undone. And I don't know if I have an unconquerable soul for which to thank my gods. What I do know is that today my own soul still stands unconquered. Maybe battered, beaten, bloody, right? Certainly lives in a body that is a little battered and beaten. But the spirit within remains unbowed. And no matter how much patienting I've had to do so far, that is my truth so far. So what is the call in this wacky sermon anyway? I'm getting there right now. Some of you may have wondered why I've been preaching to the choir, so to speak, this morning. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, people. But do you all know what's just absolutely amazing about choirs? They sing. Choirs sing. You're Unitarian Universalists. I know that you as a people know how to love on a community. If our congregational life has not yet taught you how to love a community through multiple hardships, well, just stick around. Together, I'm sure we can find the well of word around here somewhere. And in the meantime, you do what you do, good people. You sing. Find those in your life who have been in healthcare through the fell clutch of circumstance or the bludgeonings of chance and love them. Whether they be cousins, friends, neighbors, love them. That's it. That's the call. Whether you come across them after waiting in a clinic so long, that is a clinic that is so far behind, you may now have to talk about the pressure sores that you developed while you were waiting. Or if you find them around your own dinner table, give them more grace. More patience. See what I did there? And love that you might, if you didn't know the types of things they've been through. And now that you know at least a few of my things, just please use these things that I shared to recognize them in the people you know. And don't stop with the nurses or doctors among you, right? Those who clean, who stop the angry microbes from messing everybody up. They have been cleaning more rooms faster than ever before, with fewer resources than ever before, fewer team members than ever before, right? And they say the same thing as everybody else when I check in with them, right? Food services. Do you know how many people food services has had to remind to put their masks back on? And, that's awkward. It's awkward for me. And security, oh my gosh. You would not believe what hospital security teams have been through in this world. And you know what? This time, let us not forget the executives. I know, we're UUs, we're supposed to struggle with hierarchy. It's like imprinted into the bones, right? We don't even like our own hierarchy, right? But in this case, I've watched my executives weep with the rest of us. And I cannot imagine the weight of the decisions they have had to make for all of us for the past 2 years. I have actually watched some of them crumble under that weight. I've watched their mental health melt down with my chaplain's eyes that maybe see too much or maybe more than people want them to witness. So this time, let's not forget the executives. Love on them too. None of you have to choose to stay with the patient in crisis. Only a few of us are called to make that kind of a sacrifice. The kind that changes all of the next moments for a people. But you can love on the ones that do. And I would ask you to be careful about casting them into the role of the hero. Like me, some of them may only be doing what they must or can. In a moment where it seems like it will matter, and while playing the hero is flattering, it can also be lonely, isolating, and exhausting. And today, the heroes of healthcare, they look too tired to me. To me, it looks like they could sure use the role of the credits already, so maybe they could get some shawarma too. Let's not make them heroes this time. Just love them, all of them. Every person you know who works in healthcare or who has, especially for the past 2 years, right, where the work has gotten, frankly, hard and weird. Don't forget them or their beloved community of healthcare as the world around us moves on. And if your procedures are delayed, work the problem with them. I'm not saying you have to tolerate what you cannot, right? I think I'm saying that work with them. Don't blame them, right? They didn't want your procedures to be delayed either. And if you really want to get outside a comfort zone, maybe invite a story or two. Remember, though, that there's a reason most of us don't tell our stories, right? We live in a world where the boundaries are just not the same. So if you do ask for stories, sit down, get ready. You might be surprised by what you get. And if you don't want to ask for stories, that is okay. Your love is enough. Your love is enough. Give them that, always, in all places, all of the time. And while you're at it, watch the news. There's others in Ukraine who are battered, bloody, but still unbowed and unbroken. They could use your love too. Send it on over. And do recognize, I may be issuing you a more difficult call than it seems. And gentle people, go in peace on this day. And to those you meet on the highways and byways of the world, reflect to them your love, your grace, your patience, and your collaboration. Go forth and patiens well, people. May it be so. Please join us as I flip back through this for our closing hymn, What Wondrous Love, number 18.
Stand if you like. We'll sing verse 3 of this.
And now we will extinguish our chalice. I just realized I did those in opposite order. I think we'll survive. Please remain risen as you are. And join us in our actions as we extinguish our chalice. You're all going to help me again, because that was just awesome. All right, ready? This chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. And we hold each other in our hearts until we meet again. May the light of love shine upon you and out from within you. Be gracious unto you and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And instead of being seated for the postlude, let's sing again right away.
Let's sing 131, Love Will Guide Us, verses 2 and 3, please.
That's okay.